I'd like to welcome everybody to the...
Hold on. Okay.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the December 7th, 2021 Port of Bellingham Commission meeting. We will now end our executive session and go to the regular Port Commission meeting for today. Closing the executive session and opening the regular meeting. And I will call roll. Commissioner Shepard? Here. Commissioner Briscoe?
Here. I'm here.
And Commissioner Bell, all three commissioners present for the first time all year?
Ever, maybe?
All year?
Feels like
March of 2020.
It feels,
20.
yeah, my personal bubble's been invaded. So welcome to the Port Commission meeting. We will open the meeting for public comment. Anybody online, feel free to raise your hand or make yourself known if you wish to speak to the commission. We will also make another time available at the end of this commission meeting, which I promised to do. I failed to do it last time and heard about it. So we will do it at the very end of this one as well. So if you have something to say now, please feel free to raise your hand or make yourself known, and we will listen to your comment, and we will have another public comment period at the end of the meeting. Anyone wishing to do public comment, please let us know.
I would like to make public comment, please.
Please.
Thank you. Hi. Good afternoon, commissioners and staff. For the record, my name is Pat Grubb. My wife and I own the Northern Light building situated on port property at 225 Marine Drive, Blaine. At the last commission meeting, we were asked for more information regarding the potential purchaser of our building, specifically his intentions regarding the build-out of the second phase, his intended uses, and his construction background. We were also asked to determine how our neighbors felt about his plans. Yesterday, I sent commissioners a package containing a letter from Mr. Tim Vandevecht, a resume showing his bio and construction history, an appraisal of his latest project, the high-quality 48-unit Depot Village development in Blaine that is just about to come online, as well as the original artist rendering of the Northern Light building when we were going through the permitting process back in 2005, and finally a photo of the building model showing what it would look like when completed. As you can see, Tim is asking for two things that differ from the first design. We'd like the final design to be symmetrical in that the existing third floor apartment would be mirrored on the western end of the building. This would become his personal residence. We happen to agree that the building otherwise looks lopsided without that addition. He would also like one residential unit on the second floor with the rest of the floor reserved for office or other commercial uses. He intends to build a restaurant on the first floor, which would bring back a sit-down restaurant to the harbor for the first time in many years. I hope he loves seafood. As he wrote, Tim does not want to gentrify the harbor or build a bunch of condos. He intends to follow the building's original cannery-style aesthetic and be a complementary addition to the harbor. Regarding our neighbors, we met with board members of the Working Waterfront Coalition and presented Tim's plans to them. I understand that they have communicated their feelings about the project directly with the commission and port staff. To conclude, we believe the port has a wonderful opportunity to help realize its vision of a revitalized and thriving Blaine Harbor. Tim is an excellent first-class builder with the resources to finish what my wife and I began, a beautiful marine-oriented structure that will be a lasting example of what is possible for Blaine Harbor. Thank you. We hope you will give this project your most serious consideration.
Thank you. And I speak for the rest of us. We did get that information, and I've had a chance to take a look at it, so I appreciate that.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
Commissioners, the information came to me last Wednesday, which was after we had published the agenda for this week. So it didn't make it this agenda packet, but if the commission so desires, we'll put it on the January 4th agenda.
Thanks, Rob, for that. Anyone else wishing to speak in open session? Anyone? Okay, we will move on to the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through P.
Mr. Shepherd, you wish to pull anything or talk about anything?
Nope, I've already had my questions answered, thanks.
Commissioner Briscoe?
No, I'm fine as well.
And I am fine.
Okay. Motion to approve consent agenda items A through P.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Commissioner Shepherd?
Yes.
Commissioner Bell is also a yes. Consent agenda approved. Presentation on the board mill. Elliot, I think you're up.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Commissioners. I'm Elliot Smith, Director of Real Estate. And I just have a dispense with that for a moment. I just have a brief update on where we are on the request for proposals to redevelop the board mill building down at the waterfront. You'll be quite happy to learn that the draft RFP is well along the way at this moment. The real estate team has been working on that, answering a few legal questions, and we expect that document to go for review to the rest of the port staff and the directors and Executive Director Fix in the last part of December. Barring any major revisions, we expect that RFP to go out no later than January 31st. The Commission will also have a chance to review that. The actual document, we'll have to check that we can legally share that outside of port staff first, but I expect there will be no surprises there. The idea at this moment is that the historic shell of the board mill building is redeveloped as a hotel. Hopefully with a large conference facility, maybe 600 or more person capacity, or other.
Can I go back to something you just said? You said sharing that outside of port. What do you mean by that? Do you mean sharing it with the commission?
A request for proposal is a legal document. I just want to make sure that the actual document we can share before we've issued it to the public, but all the items in it would be.
So will there be an opportunity for the commission to take a look at it before it goes public?
Yes, we will send it to you, and then we'll individually meet with you to discuss it.
That's what I had in mind. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
So that is legal.
Correct.
Just wondering.
Just wanted to be sure.
Yeah, so did me. So did I.
So we're expecting that goes out on January 31st. We expect to allow a full 12 weeks for responses to be put back in, and then a relatively rapid review of those proposals, going to a selection of the final party, or at least a final short list about 4 weeks after that. So after many years' wait for this site to be redeveloped and ready to go, I believe we're in quite a good position. I might add, without naming any parties' names, we currently have 8 serious parties or groups that have expressed interest in responding to this. We have not had negotiations with them other than to take their name and contact information and tell them approximately when we expect this to be issued. But there is quite a lot of interest.
Elliot, is there going to be a timeline for when the construction has to start and timeline for deliverables included in the RFP, so groups will know what kind of parameters they're going to work under?
I'm going to jump out of order here and go to the last item on my list, and that is that we really will strongly value strong development teams in these proposals. So it's not just about historic sensitive design. It's not just about building any old hotel. We also want to see a full, strong development team doing design, finance, build, and operate phases of the operation. That will, I think, include a timeline. We would expect to be quite realistic by the time we have selected a party, negotiated a contract, come up with a memorandum of understanding, which will also come before the commission, that we're probably the end of the year or early 2022 before they're really ready to start going. And then we would expect a couple of years construction period.
We have somebody online that's not muted their mic. If you guys would take a look at your microphones and just make sure they're muted. Thank you, Mr. Hogan. Andy, you might want to mute yours as well.
So what I can do now is to just briefly go through the selection criteria that we think we're looking for. One, to get your views, and to tell you how we think we'll be judging these proposals. And I have 10 or 12 items here on the list. I'll switch to the next page of this if I can.
While he's doing that, Commissioners, I just want to briefly add that Commissioner Shepard's question is a very valid one. I think a lot of that will be addressed in the negotiations with the ultimate winner of the RFP, and we'll take the lessons we learned from Harcourt and apply them to this. So the contract we end up with will absolutely have parameters or timelines in it that they have to receive an occupancy certificate and be open for business.
So what I have here is selection criteria principles. So we will have a more detailed matrix that is with the RFP document as it goes out that we'll be able to use for ranking and evaluation between the various proposals. But we're asking each development partnership should include a hotel concept, perhaps with a conference facility or other add-on, but they may also include a second alternative design proposal if they wish to have the port and the commission consider it. That allows the market to present what they may see as a more creative alternative and gives the commission the freedom to select an alternative or one of the main hotel concepts that we have requested. And all the language around this will make very clear that you may pick either a hotel or an alternative design or none at all. It's your privilege.
Why make them bring forward a hotel concept if they're not thinking a hotel concept is the best?
Good question. We had assumed that a hotel was the base idea for this concept. It had been broadly circulated both during my time here at the port and before that. I'm willing to open that up a little wider if that's the consensus of the commissioners. I have had success in other roles in the past, asking for a base proposal and giving them some room if they think they have a much better idea to put it forward. So I'm relying on my own past experience that has been successful. But I'm willing to open it up wider and focus it less on hotel and give them more freedom.
I like that idea.
Okay? We can do that?
Yeah, I mean, in our past conversations, I think we've entertained the idea of a hotel. That's kind of what we've always assumed, but I'm certainly open to not having the right idea. And if somebody else has a smarter idea and a better concept, I don't mind being surprised.
Okay.
Well said, Commissioner. I believe the same thing. You know, granted, I think we we've put forward the consensus that we'd probably like a hotel there, but if someone comes up with a grand scheme that is way better than that and better use for that area and our community, I certainly wouldn't want them sitting on the sidelines somewhere not being able to put that forward.
Okay,
And I understand that opens it up for a lot more criteria, or many more things to read, so on and so forth, but I certainly don't want to leave anybody out.
I think that's an easy adjustment. It changes the selection criteria a little bit, but many of the things are the same. For example, we're encouraging any outside investors to try to link up with a local partner, perhaps making an exception for businesses that are from outside Bellingham but have been doing business here for a long time, might be headquartered in Canada or elsewhere in the United States. So we want to keep open to that if they're already a part of the community. This is more specific to hotels, but we are really discouraging cookie-cutter hotel designs, more interested in boutique hotels that take their design cues from the site's industrial past, logging and paper pulp, marine businesses. We're strongly encouraging that. It should feel like it's from Bellingham. It should feel like it's at the waterfront. It's next to an active working port. That's a plus, and I think the developers see that as well. In response to one of your other questions, I think you'll see the fourth or fifth item down. Rapid but realistic development timeline for proposals is essential for a successful tender. We're also interested that they're looking at what else is happening down at the waterfront right now. So we have the pump track and the container village and outside seating. We have the condominiums starting to go up, which is very exciting. It's going to be a lot of building down there for a while. We have the granary building just about full up with tenants and restaurants, and we want them to look at that buzz and keep that kind of vitality going. And that should be reflected in their proposals. So they're not in a vacuum, just a hotel sitting by themselves. Also specific to the hotel idea was that it would be okay if they're associated with a global hotel brand, but that needs to be subdued. It needs to be very low key, not big 10-foot letters with the hotel name mounted on top of the board mill building. So it should be pushing towards the boutique, but yeah, fine if they're using their global reservation system, for example. We do know that the site is 3.42 acres, and the concept at this moment, subject to your approval, is that would be a sale. We would, rather than having a sort of reverse auction where we go for the highest price anyone will pay per acre or per square foot, we are recommending that we go with the established price per square foot down in the waterfront of about $25 a square foot. That's because we want the money put into a high-quality hotel concept or alternative concept, not in a bidding contest for the land. We need this to be quality, long-term additions to the port. So we think in going with that fixed price approach, we'll get the attention put into the building and development itself, rather than just a fight over the land price. And we may pay for that. We would fear we would pay for that later in a lesser quality build.
Can you refresh my memory? What is the purchase price that we had in the original agreement for Harcourt per square foot?
Adjusted for inflation, that's it.
That's it?
The Lignan building is another recent land pricing in that area. There are several others, but they all come out at approximately 25 a square foot. And we may adjust that slightly, but that's the thinking at this moment.
So doing this won't lock us into that price for the other acreage that's down there, will it?
No, sir. The acreage, the Harcourt acreage is all set by the MDA. This will be going out at the $25 a foot, and then anything else will be at the commission's discretion.
Okay, thank you.
Are we
open to a long-term lease. I know it's not generally preferable
We
to-
prefer it, yeah.
But I think we typically prefer that. I'll speak for myself, I prefer that. And it could be advantageous to some of the groups who are looking how to most creatively apply their capital.
Right. So the staff, the real estate staff has debated this topic at some length. We know that the port's mission is to maintain our port properties for the long term. And we think that might be possible. We do fear, however, that we might get fewer respondents if we were on a long-term lease. However, that has been successful in a couple of other cases. So there's a recent example in Everett, and our own Bellwether Hotel here is set up on a long-term lease. If you asked the developers, they would probably not prefer it, but we could go that direction if that's the desire.
The other thing that could be done with that is we could put it as part of the scoring criteria and give a minimal amount of points to a lease over a sale. I'm afraid if you did too much weight on the lease, then you're going to scare off some of the bigger developers that want to purchase the property. But it could certainly, at the commission's direction, be a preference.
Now,
I would at least put it as an option myself. I don't know if it's a preferential one to, but I prefer it. And I do think it should be included as an option.
So one of the considerations around lease or purchase will be around how we establish the long-term financing of the cleanup of the rest of the Georgia Pacific site. So the commission's thinking and previous commission's thinking in the past had been that sale proceeds from that particular area would go to, for example, clean up the ASB or do some capping on some of the other areas. I think there are other ways to approach that once we have a solid revenue from a long-term lease, but probably the simplest approach would be sale and then put it into the environmental part. But let me come work that a little further, and I'll bring back some more thought on this topic. Speaking of environment, however, that is environment and sustainability is a key measure for how we would rank these proposals. Now, whoever starts developing this site has a big advantage. We have the Corex district energy system, which will already automatically lower the environmental footprint on this building. But they are free to come to us with additional sustainability ideas, water reuse, solar panels, charging systems for vehicles. I mean, there's a whole host of building technologies that they could use to lower the carbon footprint there, and we will rank those positively. But we're off to a good start on the basic design with the Corex district energy system. I think that covers most of the main points that I had listed on these two slides. I can go back and research the lease buy question. I can go back and widen the criteria we're willing to accept, not so narrow as just a hotel or one alternative, but let them use their creativity a little bit more widely, as long as it is contributing to the vitality we're looking to create down here at the waterfront.
I'm a little curious about the partnership experience on the Brownfield sites that you put in there. Talk me around that a little bit. What are you specifically looking for with that?
I'm looking for groups that have experience working in brownfield sites. So we have brownfield site on two levels here. We have a historic building that is essentially a shell. It can be turned into something quite nice. If you look at the picture on the left here in this slide, you'll see the building in its glory 100 years ago with great big wide windows and even a steam engine sitting out front. Yeah. So we'd like it to look that way, but there are a lot of industrial pedestals on the inside here. There's equipment. There's a lot that needs to be cleaned out. There are kilns that that will need reworking. So it is a brownfield site in that it's an old building that needs to be revitalized with a historic intent, but it also has some capping around the outside of it. There is some contamination in the soil that has been remediated, and Brian, you could step in here if I'm speaking incorrectly, and has been capped. And when they start to dig in the spot, they will have to dig properly, handle the soil properly, and make sure they recap what they've disturbed.
That's
So
what I
I'm
was-
looking for that kind of experience.
You want, and that's a must-have, is someone who has experience not disturbing existing remediation efforts?
Yeah. Or at
not
least to
sure.
show they have a partner that can help them to do that.
Or have a partner, okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's a must-have. I think we can work with them to satisfy all those requirements. But most of the concepts we've seen or heard about include a tower developed alongside the board mill building, and that's going to require some digging in the grounds. And so you will have to comply with the materials management plan that we have.
That was part of my concern.
I-
You may eliminate some,
I think we want to make sure they're aware of it, Commissioner. I think you're right. It may not be a preference or something we score them on, but we just want to make sure they're aware that these restrictions are going to apply.
yeah, I don't necessarily want to scare off a valid vendor just because we called it Brownfield, right?
For the,
Requirement, yeah.
when the RFP is issued, it will be issued with access to a data vault. And that data vault will include some historic pieces, what was previously there on the site. It will include the as-built drawings of the building, some building assessments, some ground condition assessments, the zoning for the area. For example, the tower Rob just spoke of would be in under 100-foot range based on the current zoning and view corridors, et cetera. So it's intended that there's an RFP, there's a link for them to tap into this publicly available data and take a good look at what it is that they would be redeveloping. So they will have quite a lot of data about what has been cleaned up there, what remains, how it was capped, that sort of thing.
So I'm kind of with you on it's a requirement to even put an RFP forward is how I kind of looked at it when I read it, and I think that may be what you were kind of saying.
Yeah.
But so that's not going to be under the requirements, right? It's just, you go, here's the data on it. You don't have to be required to know this. You can hire somebody.
Based on what I'm hearing here, it will no longer be a requirement.
That sounds good.
When I read it, that's just kind of what I got.
Yeah.
And if, I mean, it's.
Talk to me about financial assurance and bonding and how that's gonna work. Are we actually gonna get a vendor here who pays their bills? Not that we have any experience with vendors who don't,
I'll crack that whip.
but it would be nice.
Did I mention I joined the port in June? No, actually, this is something we've been wrestling with for a while, and it's part of the discussion around your questions, whether you lease the parcel or sell the parcel. So if we sell the parcel, we need to sell the parcel with covenants attached to make sure that they stick to the development, the concept design that they've dealt with. And we think we can put in some security in there to require that they move in within a certain time zone. But once you've sold it, you do lose a certain amount of control. So part of what we've been wrestling with back and forth is, do we lease it and have a heavier level of requirements where if there isn't performance, we could pull back? Or do we make sure we build the deeds properly and build in the proper covenants so that we're 99% sure that it will go forward as planned? But it is a real consideration in the lease or purchase discussion.
Would it be, would you structure so that they maybe got a lease until they completed, and upon completion, we completed the sale? That way we'd had some leverage?
I suspect they may have a bank,
And there's multiple ways to get that leverage, Commissioner. If they don't perform and get done by a certain period of time, we could revert back to us. The building could revert back, or the property, the 3-point-some acres could revert back to us at some previously agreed-to price.
But I think that financial assurance is important. I mean, that's something we have learned we need. So I think we need to be able to see capacity for access to capital.
Sorry, repeat that last part.
Oh, we need to see capacity that they have the access to capital needed to complete the project.
Right. And with a sale, they'll be more easily, they will have an easier time accessing capital and getting banks to sign off on the funding. With a lease, it becomes somewhat more complicated. So there are pluses and minuses of both. And it's frankly something we've been struggling with. How do we ensure we get the speed we're looking for at this point, now that the site is fully ready? So, yeah, and it is a worry. Are there any other questions? I'll be quite happy to provide the full RFP in not too long a time. You can see we're well into it. And these were the principles we were thinking of for selection criteria. So happy to hear any additional ideas, but we're well along the way here.
Do you have a contingency if it goes, if someone has a plan that goes above and beyond the 3.4 acres? 3.2?
It's going to be really challenging to do based on the other designs we have for that property and the shipping terminal access from the log pond.
So they're constrained to that.
Yeah, it'd be tough to do. We could shift the 3.4 around. I mean, it doesn't have to be the exact look, that we have. We can move that around a little bit, but to get more than 3.4 would hurt us elsewhere.
We did nudge up the original size of the parcel to make sure that they had enough room to do a proper development, to add rooms behind the historic building, for example, or facilities. So I think it's adequate for what we're looking at. But yeah, again, we'll be interested in their ideas. Maybe they put something forward.
One that always comes along later, what about the parking? What do we envision?
So I mentioned a tower. So the concept I've always worked from is the board mill being kind of the lobby and public spaces, and then there's a tower with the guest rooms behind it or alongside it, et cetera. That tower would have the first couple floors being parking.
So this is a fairly large diameter tower we're speaking to.
Yeah, it's going to get some height on it. Yeah, I think the height limit there is 150 feet. So you're going to have 2 floors or so of parking, and then you're going to have a few stories of hotel above that. The advantage of that is that some of those hotel rooms are going to have spectacular views, and if you do a really nice restaurant on the top floor, it's going to have incredible views because you're raising the height of the whole thing.
Are you putting an RFP in, or are you?
I've designed this several different ways over the past couple of years, but probably not.
A lot of pencils in that one. So have they considered off-site parking somewhere where they would, I mean, we're talking a little higher end hotel here, I think, so have we considered off-site parking that they would?
Yep, I've got some other ideas on parking that I'm running through staff right now. I'm not quite ready to share them with you yet, but there's some ideas there that, especially the parcel across from the Lignin building that's right next to the cogen plant. That's going to be a really tricky parcel to develop because the cogen plant is right next door. So that could be a public parking garage that we lease some space to the hotel from.
I like that idea.
Note that there are no number of rooms here, no number of guests. We're letting them create their business plan for what they think works on this site. We're not saying you need to have exactly 133 rooms or 200 rooms. We leave that open to them to see what makes sense for their finances.
My cocktail napkin at 150 with 15,000 square feet of meeting space.
Not that he's put any time into this. Thoughts?
Anyway, and we're going to have a subway system now too, huh?
Elliot,
Any other questions?
yeah, what about the group who's going to make the initial review of the proposal? Are you going to have a panel of staff that does this review and then brings us a recommendation?
We haven't discussed this in detail yet, but the idea was that we have a directors level group that is staffed by the real estate team, but presented to a number of the directors under Executive Director Fix, We review the proposals, we rank them, and then make a recommendation. I'm open to structuring that slightly differently, but the basic idea is a solid staff review, a recommendation, and then open it up for the commission to ask questions and any follow-up that's required.
So
That's fine to me. I was just making sure that I did not want to make that initial recommendation. So I wanted the recommendation to come to me. I don't know how my fellow commissioners feel, but I didn't want it to be a political feeling decision as
no,
much as
I
possible.
don't either, but I think that I would like to be a little bit more involved, and I would like to look at what we get. I mean, I don't want to, but I would like to look at everything we get. I mean, is that doable?
Yeah, I think what we should do here is, Commission, after we get everything in, the deadline's passed, we'll have a work study session where we show you all the responses. And then we can take that as staff work and do the staff work and make a recommendation from that. But we'll certainly share all the responses for you. And that way, if something jumps out that you really like, you can tell us.
That's kind of what I was getting at. I'd like to be a process like that, so we actually get, so one of the things that happens is somebody's gonna send an RFP in, and one of us is gonna be somewhere and go, well, what did you think of ours? And if it goes by the wayside, it might have been good, and I didn't see it, I'm not gonna feel very, like I did my job as a commissioner. I didn't listen to the people of the county or whoever was speaking, so I think that idea I like that idea.
Typically, we would set up a reading room where each of the proposals is sitting in it, where people can come in and review all of them. And I don't see any reason why we couldn't simply schedule all of you in there as well. And deciding between 4 or 5 or 6 very good proposals can be an agonizing process. You can see people have really put their soul into it, and you can't pick them all. And it's hard work. It takes a long time to read through them. You know, we might get 200 pages each. It can be quite a daunting. 4 weeks is a reasonable amount of time for us to do it, but it will be an all-consuming 4 weeks. It's not a fast process.
We'll have food delivered. You're welcome.
And fresh linen every other day.
Elliot, how far out is our next RFP? I'm conscious that there are going to be people who apply and put great proposals forward and aren't going to be selected for this opportunity. How can we provide the next opportunity that they can take some of their interest and resources and dedicate to in our community?
Yeah, so we do have an idea for a next one within the real estate team. I'd like to discuss that further. I was thinking somewhere towards the middle of the year, given how much time it will take to review these, negotiate memorandums of understanding and sale or lease agreements. We have a limited number of staff to do that. But yeah, maybe a quarter of a year after, we could try for the next piece. But I'd like to leave it at that at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions?
No, just make sure we have your orders. All right, we will now recess the public meeting and open the Industrial Development Corporation IDC Board meeting. As the current IDC rep, I will open this meeting. And our job now is to select officers for the Industrial Development Corporation Board of Directors for the 2022 calendar year. So with that, we'll also establish the time, the date, the location of the IDC meetings for 2022. We'll adopt the minutes of the IDC's meeting held on December 8th, 2020. Wow, it seems like a lifetime ago. And authorize the 2022 budget for the IDC totaling revenues and expenditures outlined in the IDC. Authorize the IDC treasurer to approve the distribution of payments of the IDC funds in conjunction with the budget. So with that, I will open the IDC meeting, and let's talk about officers for the industrial development.
Ken, you want me to help you guide you through this?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do.
So just a little background. for this year, Ken Bell was president, Michael Shepherd was vice president, Bobby was secretary, and Tamara was treasurer. Do you guys want to mix that up, or you want to keep it the same?
Commissioners, typically the IDC officers mirror the port's officers. So the president of the IDC is the same as the president of the port.
So Bobby should be president?
No, he shouldn't be, but
It's his turn.
So I'll propose that Commissioner Briscoe becomes president, I become secretary, Commissioner Bell becomes vice.
I will second that.
All in
Unless you have an
favor?
objection.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye?
Aye. And Tamara will be treasurer.
That was in there too.
Well, we were gonna hold yours separately, so there was more of a spotlight.
I just passing you the gavel. I don't use it anyway.
And then,
This won't be effective until the January meeting, Commissioners.
Then give it back.
No, you can't have it.
so establishing the date, time, and location of the meetings, historically, we just schedule the meetings as needed. Are you guys okay with keeping that? Okay. Okay, and then in your packets were the minutes and the treasurer's. You guys approve both of those?
So a question on establishing the meeting times and dates. Don't we usually go with it's the first and third Tuesday of each month unless we change it?
Well, this is for the IDC meeting though. So the IDC is as needed usually. So if we need one, we call one. If we don't, then we do it at the end of the year to do all this stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with,
I move that we approve the minutes and the budget.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. So the budget and the minutes have been approved. And now authorize the IDC treasurer to approve the distribution and payment of IDC funds in conjunction with the budget. So moved.
I second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. What else?
Well, you got, now we're done, so you can close
So now we're done. I will close the IDC meeting and reconvene the public meeting with our action items. And our action items are going to start with the establishment of the Port Commission officers and board representatives for the calendar year 2022. Carrie, this
Sure.
one's on you.
Okay.
Follow directions while
It's in yellow. It's in yellow, I have to.
For president, we decided Bobby. And vice president is Ken, and secretary is Michael. Do you guys approve that? Okay.
All in favor?
I can reread
I
the
approve
motion.
that.
I approve.
I approve.
Okay. And then our second item, approval of a motion to appoint the following Port of Bellingham commissioners to serve as representative trustees, board members for the following organizations or committees during 2022. So this year, Ken was primary for WCOG and Michael Shepherd was an alternate. Do you guys want to?
Would you do me a favor? Would
Sure.
you list them all? So that
Sure. Yep.
we know?
So WPPA, Bobby was trustee, Ken was alternate. EDI, Ken was primary, Bobby was alternate. And Western Crossing, Michael was primary and Ken was an alternate.
Okay. So COG, I was primary on that.
You were primary and Michael was an alternate.
Faithfully attending. As a matter of fact, we've got one tomorrow. Anybody want to be COG?
You want us honest to answer that or not?
I know your answer. I just want you to say it publicly.
So let's put it out this way. Does anybody have a problem with what they're doing, or would they like to keep going and keep the continuity and stability? I mean, it's up to you guys.
I was gonna have that be my recommendation because this past year, some of these things haven't met at all. And so it feels like some of this past year didn't happen for some of these board groups. And I was gonna think we just stay the same unless people had a strong
Well, yeah, the only
opinion
thing-
otherwise.
The only thing I would say is WPPA. I tend to go to those more than I think you do, just saying. So you being the primary may not be the wisest on WPPA.
No, I'm fine with that,
So,
you know,
and I kind of would like to see what we can do there.
Okay, so we'll keep everything the same and except WPPA, we'll make Ken trustee and Bobby alternate.
that's fine.
Okay,
I voted in your behalf last meeting.
Huh? Well, I'd still go.
Would you?
You gotta drive though.
Yeah, fine with me.
No, I
Should-
think,
should we make
I
the
really
motion?
think that, you know, when you start, in my opinion, when you start changing things every year, it breaks the continuity with the other people that are there. And I think we can do a better job as commissioners if we just can stay steady and static with what's going on.
Agreed.
Okay.
So with that one exception, that's the slate. All in favor? Yes, just read them off real quick, thank you.
okay. So proposed for 2022, Ken Bell as primary, Micah Shepherd as an alternate. For WPPA, Ken Bell as trustee, Bobby Briscoe as alternate. For EDI, Ken Bell as primary, Bobby Briscoe as alternate. And for Western Crossing, Michael Shepherd is primary and Ken Bell is alternate.
I think the EDI,
The EDI, I said Ken Bell is primary and Bobby Briscoe is alternate.
What do we have on the COG
that, right now it's me.
this year?
Yeah, would you like to take the COG?
I'll take alternate on that unless you want it.
No, take primary on that.
Or primary?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I'll take it
make,
for WPPA.
And steak dinner or what?
Because then, yeah, I think that'd be good.
That might be a couple steak dinners.
okay, so make Bobby primary for WCOG, and then who's gonna be the
I'll do
alternate?
alternate.
Okay,
So you're alternate on the COG?
Yep.
Yeah, I can rile them up as good as anybody can.
Yeah, well, you might want to attend tomorrow's meeting. Yeah, that works.
are we good?
I
Okay,
attend those because I like.
All
to
in
argue with
favor?
Jack.
All in favor?
Okay.
Are we in favor of that
Yeah,
slate?
sounds good to me.
Okay, approved.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, now we're going to go to a motion authorizing the Port Commission to approve the draft 2021 Port of Bellingham District Plan for publication. And Greg Mchenry.
Is he coming in via the camera or?
Hello, Greg.
Good evening, Commissioners. Can you see me now?
Oh, can we ever?
A little bright?
Yeah, it's kind of bright. Oh, now he's gone.
So anyway, I put together this draft districting plan based purely on the 2020 census data. As you saw from the report, population between the three districts varied by a few thousand, depending on the district. So I took a look at the census counts by precinct and made the recommendation that precinct 234 be moved from District 2 to District 1, and precinct 136 be moved from District 3 to District 1 to balance out the population.
Greg, can you point to those precincts?
I can. I'd like to share my screen if you don't mind.
Yeah, it's just, it's a little small for us to see the numbers.
Can you
I
share?
thought it might be, so let's see.
You should be able to share. Well,
Here we go. And then I can zoom in. District 234 is over here off Alabama Hill.
you're not shared yet.
You're not shared yet.
Oh, let's see.
Commissioners, a little background while he's doing that. We have the same districts as the PUD. We don't have to do this until next year. Our deadline would be December of next year, but the PUD has a deadline of this year, and because they have an election next year. So that's why we're doing this now versus when our deadline is. But the PUD has this exact same map that Greg is sharing you. Greg was nice enough to do their work for them as he did ours.
Why aren't they just kept, well, you got a piece going up in the middle of nowhere. I mean, well, not middle of nowhere, but we don't have fairly straight boundary lines here. We got zigs and zags and.
It's because each district has to have substantially the same population. And so during the new census data from 2020 came out, they weren't substantially the same. So in order to do so, you try and keep them contiguous. And Greg, I think, did a pretty good job of doing that. But the lines, it's impossible to get them straight because you would never have the same populations.
So I guess I would ask.
Also, we
did it go
have
this way instead
Peter
of that way?
Rafato here this evening that was Smellick, Sitkin, and Davis, and he can help explain some of the state requirements for redistricting. One of those requirements is how compact the districts are, which are very subjective, and would indicate that there might be a preference for more of an urban density versus a rural density. So this particular draft one has a combination of precinct 234, which is more urban, and precinct 136, which has a more rural density. So
Where's
it's a little
136?
combination of both.
Okay, right there.
Over by Marietta.
And with that, I'd like to introduce Peter, if he would like to add to that.
Yes, thank you, Greg. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay,
Yes.
so yeah, good evening, commissioners and board staff. Peter Rafato, I'm with the Schmelik and Sitkin and Davis law firm. So in being able to work with Greg on this, the statutory criteria, in order to meet the criteria, Greg mentioned some of those. First and foremost, you want that population to be equalized as much as possible. And that is ultimately a constitutional principle, one person, one vote. And so that's first and foremost. And I think, as Greg indicated, the way he's worked this up, we're down to a deviation of 113 at most. The other criteria are as compact as possible, geographically contiguous. There's a prohibition, of course, of using the data to favor a political party or a racial group, and so we have no problem there. And there is an interest in the statute, a requirement that you maintain as much as possible communities of interest. And the one thing good about this, I would submit to the commission, good about this draft plan is that it maintains, it's based on the precincts. So it avoids confusion among voters as to where the lines are. And last I checked, that Whatcom County and its redistricting process was also going by existing precinct lines. And I would just add to that, those are the substantive requirements. There are procedural requirements, and this meeting is really the first step in that process because it allows the port to publish that draft plan, which then kicks off a number of steps, which, because we're dealing with two different statutes, will include really two public hearings, one after publication of the draft plan, and then another hearing at the point of adoption. So that pretty much summarizes it. I can answer any questions that the commission may have or anyone else at this point.
First of all, Peter, welcome to the Port of Bellingham, your first meeting with us. I'd like to introduce you to Michael Shepard and Commissioner Bobby Briscoe. You've already met me.
Thank you.
Welcome. And Commissioner Briscoe?
I have a question. So on what's in front of us right now, which districts were changed? 234, was that one changed?
Yes, that was previously, I'll just, because of the current colors of the map, was previously yellow and part of District 2. and is now proposed to become green, a part of District 1.
So it looks like a gerrymander. I think I'll go right to the point, because it does stick up all by itself. Whereas you could have easily gone into 223 there and not had it be so obvious. Right?
The
So
populations
If
aren't
you'd gone
the
to
same.
223, you would have gotten a much denser population.
and it
It
would've
probably
thrown the
would have
numbers off.
bumped your numbers out of whack.
So is
That's
two-
my guess.
Is 234 the only one that's
Correct.
changed in that district then?
Well, they also brought in 136.
Well, that was my next, yeah, so they bought 136-1 or 136-2, or both of them.
both of them.
So those used to be District 3 are now District 1.
So we had to increase the population in District 1.
Yeah, there's been more
Correct.
growth in the North County and less growth in the South. And so, rebalancing. I did speak with one of the PUD commissioners, and they were appreciative of Greg's efforts to help them and just how the port has supported them. And they've discussed the map already at one of their meetings, I believe, and found it to be adequate to meet their needs as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Shepard.
And I just wanted to say that in my preparation of the draft plan, one of the assumptions I made was that prior districting committees or council decisions where other bump outs were, I assumed that those decisions were made properly and didn't want to revisit those.
Can you go,
Would need the commission to tell me to revisit those before I altered those areas.
can you go north, Greg? There is a bump out in the north that bothered me last time I saw this map. Because
Yeah, right
there
up
it is.
here.
Yeah. What's the purpose of that?
That was decided in 2011 by the county districting committee at that time. Other than that, I don't know the real reason behind it.
Because as you go
Just
through those,
except for balancing populations between District 2 and 3.
It may also be trying to keep Linden population contiguous in one district.
I'm just sensitive to gerrymandering accusations, and those are the kind of things that look like gerrymandering to me, when you've got a clear delineation up the guide meridian. As a matter of fact, it's one of the most difficult things for me to explain, where's your district? And I usually just say, just go up the guide, and I'm to the east of the guide, and the other district is to the west of the guide.
But if you were to do something different there, Commissioners, you're dividing a precinct, and our goal was to not divide up precincts.
Yeah, I see that now. I didn't see that before.
So, yeah, and how I landed on precinct 234 was just by coincidence. It had the same population that we needed in order to reach the target population. And so District 2 is exactly at the target population that we were trying to achieve.
Well, and I can see that you've done a good job of keeping communities of interest in line, so I don't have any issues with this. I just had those two questions. One was 234 and the other one was the one up the guide. So with that in mind, I'm okay with this. Commissioner Shepard?
I'm okay with this as well. I think it's a tough task, and so it's hard to make the right choice on this. I don't know if there is a right choice. It's really, it just comes down to trying to make sure the numbers make sense and that we're in compliance with the statutory rules. And I think you've done that.
Commissioner Briscoe?
If we can move the guide, I'm good with it.
Trying to do that for us, I think.
No, I'm fine. I mean, we gotta stay within the rules and make sure that everything's equal. But I'm just looking at this and I'm thinking about the folks that wanted the 5 commissioner things and all the district changes that'd be going on. It'd be, oof.
Well, the 5 districts, the county now has 5, so we're the only ones with 3 with the PUD. And so if we did go to 5, I think we just adopt the county's districts.
Yeah.
The confusion for the people at that point.
Well, I think the confusion would reduce because then we'd all have the same 5 districts for county, port, and PUD. Right now, county's got one set of their districts and we and the PUD have another. I don't know.
This has been this way for what, 100 years for the port?
Yeah.
A little more?
Well, the county didn't have 5 a while back. It wasn't that long ago. They had 3.
Right, right. Wasn't very long ago.
Well, we're not,
Anyways,
Seeing
I'm
any-
good.
Revisiting that.
and we're not,
Good with this.
and we're not seeing a movement by the PUD to go to 5 commissioners.
No.
So it seems to be isolated to us. So I'm in favor of this. Thank you for this, so we don't have to go to the Supreme Court with it. Yes, please.
A motion authorizing the Port Commission to approve the draft 2021 Port of Bellingham Districting Plan for publication.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Aye.
Commissioner Shepard?
Yes.
And Commissioner Bell is also a yes.
Commissioners, before we move on, I just think it's, Commissioner Shepard said it, but I think it's worth saying again, Greg did great work on this, and he did the work not just for us, but also for our partners over at the PUD, so just a little acknowledgement for him for the great work he did.
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
So acknowledged. Thank you, Greg. And thank you, PUD.
Authorize the executive director to enter into an initial offer of financial aid with the County Economic Revitalization Board, CERB, for the construction of Segment 2 located in North Whatcom County.
And I think, Gina, you're up for this one.
Yes, Commissioner Bell, I am. So good evening, Gina Stark, Economic Development Project Manager and Broadband Manager for the Port of Bellingham. So I'm excited to bring this forward to you. So again, this is a motion to authorize the executive director to enter into an initial offer of financial assistance from the Community Economic Revitalization Board, better known as CURB Board, for a grant that we received, which is a $2 million grant matched by the county to do a broadband project in North Whatcom County. And so I'm just really excited because last time I was before you, I was able to tell you that we had received a scope of work and we did an IRU and we were able to begin a project in East Nooksack and North Mosquito Lake Road. So again, we're going to be building some more broadband. So I'm just really excited that we are able to, again, deliver this to you. So if it's okay, I believe, Carrie, that I can share my screen with everyone really quickly. It's just very, very short. All right. Okay. So really quickly, quick background, as you know, in 2018, we did our feasibility study that identified areas of need. And since identifying those areas of need, the Port of Bellingham, again, with partnership with the PUD and with Whatcom County, we then have been identifying areas of where we could get funding. And our number one funding partner has been CURB. So once again, we went before the CURB board and asked for a $2 million grant to then fund what is now Segment 2 in North Whatcom County. And we were granted that funding. So just very, very quickly, it was a $2 million grant. Again, 100%, this was from federal dollars, and Whatcom County matched that, which is really exciting. They utilize what is known as the EDI funding. So for a total project of $3 million, we are hoping to, again, utilize the IRU model. The indefensible right of use model for rapid deployment is still an open access network. This again is an initial offer. So we will be coming before you with the full contract. And it's just some things. We just need to do some permitting. We need to solidify the scope of work. We need to finalize the budget. And then just to finalize some letters from the county for that $1 million. And then we will then again come before you with the full contract. And then I just wanted to show you a little bit about the what the project is. So you just have a sense of what the project is. And that is, so the project area, again, which I already said is segment 2, is located north of Linden. So just so you guys can again get a sense, it's 47 miles of what we call middle and last mile, so fiber to the home. So as you remember, we did that pivot and we really heard, we want to ensure that when you're done building, that the end customer, our community members, are getting served. So again, when this project is completed, our community members will get served. And they will get served by the above, actually, the minimum standards. So 100 megabits per second, symmetrical, so up and down, and up to a gig per second, up and down. We are going to be passing 440 homes, at least 10 businesses and farms. And that's just because it's an extremely, extremely rural area. In a few minutes, I will show you the maps of where this is located, and a total of what we call 450 home passes. So like I said, an underserved area, about a middle income areas. And when I say underserved, that means currently they are getting about 25 to 3 service. So that's extremely slow. That means that they're barely being able to stream movies. It's really hard if somebody is trying to do gaming and do homework, or somebody's trying to do work at home and somebody's trying to do homework at home, just to kind of give you a sense of what that speed load is. So I'm actually showing you 2 maps because it's, like I said, it's 47 miles. And if I try to squeeze it all into one, you guys really would have to kind of get out your magnifying glasses. So just to give you a sense, the top road is, excuse me, it's kind of Halverstick Road, Van Buren Road, if you're kind of familiar with the areas. And then the different colored lines is us. We took a look at and already began to break down as we look at construction, the different phases that we will use to begin to do constructions, really looking at where the more concentration of these homes are and where we would begin construction. But as you can already see, how extremely rural this area is and why we selected this area for the project. And this is, again, as you are headed west, and you can see that's H Street Road. This is, again, right along the Canadian border. There is a fiscal impact to the port. Again, when I had mentioned the pre-contract requirements, and that is we need to do a SEPA checklist. We need to do what's called a DAP report, which is a cultural and historical report. We've done these before in some of our other projects. And knowing that we need to do these things, we've already budgeted this in the economic development budget, and it is approximately $10,000. So there is a fiscal impact to the port. And so with that, I do recommend approval of this action, and just welcome any questions.
Mr. Shepherd?
Thanks, Gina. This is really exciting to see this come forward. I'm glad you were so successful with Curb. What would you think of as a construction or implementation timeline?
Yeah, thank you. So the pre-construction, we, and just because it is on the letter, says that we need to do pre-construction by May 2022. But in talking to our partner, we are already going to start doing the permitting now, since we already are doing it for our other projects. And we'll begin to do construction of that project this year. I don't have a completion date as of yet, but we are already starting permitting now. We do anticipate and hope that we can get at least part of this done by the end of this year. But I can come back with a more firm date when we do the full contract.
Yeah, great. I just like to communicate that because we see those phases 1 through 8, and somebody could say, oh my gosh, is phase 8 going to be 10 years down the line? No, phase 8 is going to be, we're still working with a pretty rapid timeline here for this work to be done.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Briscoe?
Good work, Gina. Thanks for
Thank you.
the information. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the whole broadband program, and it's sometimes hard to do, so I appreciate your input. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So just clarify a couple of things for me. You talked about having 100 megs per second, and then you also talked about, and I think you used the phrase up to 1 gig.
That is correct.
And it is the up to part of that. Is there a guaranteed minimum that we're going to go to on the up and down, or because up to could mean anything?
Yeah, so our partner, PogoZone that I work with, they are providing a minimum of 100 symmetrical. And also with the federal funding that CURB provides, in order to utilize the CURB funding, any service provider that we use has to provide at least that minimum 100 by 100 symmetrical. But PogoZone has committed, and when we submitted that CURB application, we put in there that 100 meg symmetrical is the minimum.
And the user would have up to 1 gig,
Yes,
up and down? Okay, that's fine.
yes,
And then
symmetrical. Yeah.
just because I got to, for the public's edification, I just would like you to explain what open access means.
Oh, absolutely. So open access means that any other provider may utilize our network. So as long as they are an ISP that is in good standing, has a business license, can provide that service to our end customer, can utilize and lease our fiber and provide service to the end customer.
Are you speaking of strands in the cable when you go to 100, is that what you're talking about? So we're gonna have a 100-strand cable?
No, you'll have 1 cable, but it'll have up to a speed of
We're
1.
talking speed.
You'll have 100 megs, yeah.
How many strands, Gina, how many strands are in this cable that we're gonna use?
So it depends on where it is that we are going to. So, and I know we're getting kind of technical, and that's in the network design. So we utilize the size cable based on the neighborhood. So if there's a higher density, then we use a higher fiber count. And we do also calculate in that fiber count how many we anticipate ISPs want, how many ISPs we anticipate might want to lease or utilize that cable. So we don't just use the minimum and say, okay, we're going to use the same fiber count throughout the whole project. It's a little bit more complicated by that than that. And that's all within the network design. Does that answer your question? So it could be anywhere from 144, it could be 72. It really all depends on where it is that we are laying the cable.
So it kind of comes from the hardcourt side over here when we're talking out when the commission said to put 5 pipes in instead of 3. I guess my question is, are we putting enough in if we have problems that we can circumvent the problem and continue service? If you want to call it redundancy or whatever, are we putting the bare minimum in the ground, or are we making sure that we're putting enough in the ground so that if we have issues, we can keep things moving?
Yes. So when we're doing the network design, we are not putting in the bare minimum. Absolutely not. We put in not only what is needed for today, but we also are going to put in what I call anticipated growth. So when we look at an area, we also think about how many homes are there today, but how many potential homes are going to be there, and businesses are going to be there 5 years, 10 years from now. And that's all, and that's why we hire the professionals. That's why we have, one of the best on my team. So that when we look at this and we do the network design, we know what is the proper and the appropriate fiber count to put.
So in that anticipation factor for the future, let's say we've got 100,000 and we're gonna go to 200,000. Are we just putting in the extra number of fiber to accommodate those houses, or are we adding more than that so that we have a safety net, if you want to call it? So that when we get to that extra 100,000, do we still have more capacity if something changes or something breaks or whatever happens with fiber?
Yeah, we are. We do have extra capacity. And then, we also have in there, if something breaks or we need to go in there and do maintenance or whatever, there is extra fiber in there to anticipate needing to repair or replace the fiber. Correct.
So we can continue service while we're doing it. We would have enough to continue the service while we're fixing whatever happened on the other part of it. Is that what I'm
Correct.
hearing? Okay,
Yep.
thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you, Gina.
You're absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for the question.
And the reason I like the concept of open access is just that if you're not unhappy with your provider, it doesn't change the infrastructure at all, but what it does is it allows you to change providers on that very same network. So you don't have just a Comcast to deal with, as we heard over and over that we're limited to Comcast. That's not the case with this. We are giving open access to any provider that can service the home. And if that provider isn't doing the home justice, then another provider can come in and use that very same network and go to that very same household, and they can change. So the competition is there that we were seeking in the beginning to try to bring costs down. And as we all know, competition does bring costs down. So open access, I think, is an important part of this business model, which is what I like about it. So thank you, Gina, for that explanation, and thank you for letting me give my business response to that. With
You're
that,
welcome. Thank you.
with that, I don't think, is there any action? Yes, we do need to approve.
Please do.
Please.
Authorize executive director to enter into an initial offer of financial aid with CURB for the construction of segment 2 located in North Whatcom County.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Briscoe?
Yes.
Commissioner Bell is also a yes. And Gina, what a great job. You have more people weighing in on this than we can even imagine, and you've been able to filter that and do an amazing job with it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, commissioners. I appreciate it.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Before we move away from the broadband subject, I have a couple things that then maybe executive director can fix and help me with. So we get quite a bit of rhetoric from the public about us not doing a correct job here. And it's kind of like having a child. Your first child doesn't come with a manual. This one's got a lot of variables in it, and there's no manual to figure out if you're doing it right or not doing it right, but we do the best we can. We try to build a manual so that we do it right. And there's a lot of people that seem to think the Port of Bellingham is very wealthy. That's not the case. We try not to squander money. We try to do a lot of good things with the money that we have to work with. And on that note, Executive Director Fix, could you enlighten me in if we had an open coffer, how much money will we be spending putting fiber, a broadband network throughout the county if the cash was there?
Hundreds of millions of dollars.
So when you're talking about spending hundreds of millions of dollars on something, then you don't get a lot of help. And we're trying to figure out how to come up with this money and service to people without raising taxes to everyone, which everyone is burdened now trying to make ends meet. So those folks of you that I'll just call to attack the commission and the port staff and tell us we're not doing things right. Instead of opening your mouths, open your checkbook. You get your checkbook out and drop us a big check and help us get it done faster, and we'll get it done. Until then, come with some constructive ideas that help, not a lot of criticism. And there's a saying in my family is if you don't have anything good to say, don't say it at all. That's all I have, Commissioner.
I'll add to that we have a lot of people in this position. The entire state is in this position. So we're not alone in this, and everybody is actually going through this process statewide. At the last WPPA meeting, we heard a number of ports in the state of Washington that are actually in the same position we are. And trust me, Gina's the best of the best working on this. And we are completely networked in what everybody else is doing and how they're getting it done. So this is an amazing job, and just fending off the critics is probably the toughest part. But yeah, we're not the first, and we're not the only ones in this game. So we're getting information from all sources.
And we don't know everything, and we don't profess to know everything. We learn something new every day, and we try to apply it in the right manner so that we move forward more expediently. But
there's a joke there that I'm going to refrain from, but thank you very, very much for that. Okay, now we're on to other business, and we have what sounds like a singing group, the Smith-Peterson-Warder Trio, are going to talk to us about flooding impacts on the port properties, led by lead singer Elliott Smith.
I don't think you actually want to hear me sing.
I was baiting you into that. I'm waiting for Andy to do tenor.
So we have a few items that are from real estate and a few items that are around the Blaine Marina. I'd like to hit the real estate items first, and then Dave can pick up, and Andy can fill us in about the things around the marina and Blaine. So as you're all quite aware, our community took some pretty serious hits in the recent weather events and flooding. And our facilities were not spared from those. We did pretty well in responding. I'd like to start with Blaine. First of all, with a thank you to our counterparts in the city of Blaine, who did a great job trying to deal with a difficult situation. We had sewage overflow around the harbor there. This affected quite seriously some of our marine businesses there that are trying to handle fresh seafood. Very important to all of us. So quite unfortunate. The city did do a good job trying to warn us when we had trouble coming, and in sending a contractor to help clean up. And in next week, we'll be sitting down staff to staff, looking if we can find some practical measures to deal with sewage overflow in the future until the Blaine sewer extensions are completed. Things we can do to stop contaminating the working spaces of our marine businesses. So anyway, thanks to them. We did have overflow that pooled up. It has been cleaned up now one time. We have a little bit more cleanup to do. And at this moment, we're okay, but it was quite a big impact in the days when it happened. This business has had to close down temporarily.
Clarification, because you said we were contaminating. The origin of this contamination is the overflow from the Blaine sewage system.
That's correct.
It's not the Port of Bellingham that's doing the contamination.
I would
We're
go into
actually
the-
cleaning up Blaine's mess.
That's correct. And I would categorize this as an act of God in insurance terms. And everybody's doing the best they can to try to straighten it out. And then Andy will come back to a few other impacts in Blaine in just a few moments. I know I correct myself. We have also had some bulkhead failure around the pier that goes out pointing to the west towards Sumas, or towards, the pier that points out to the west. So we've lost bulkhead underneath. We have had some fine materials washed out to sea, and a sinkhole developed there. Part of this was from long-term age of these assets, and part of it was the king tides that came in at the same time as the heavy rainfall events. So we do have to do some repair there, and that's part of the conversation we'll have with the city of Blaine. The road is theirs. The bulkheads and the pier are the Port of Bellingham's responsibility. I won't go into too much detail there, and we'll report back when we've figured out how to mitigate that damage. In Sumas, we have 2 industrial customers. Those industrial customers we initially thought had done okay in the flooding, but when we were actually able to get into it, we found there were quite some heavy impacts. So Teal Jones Lumber had about 4 feet of water throughout their facility. They pretty much lost all office furniture, computers, warped doors. They pretty much had to gut the inside of the building. They lost about 10 motors in their milling equipment. 4 large forklifts, I believe, are complete write-offs. And their pallets of lumber and some shipping containers have migrated out to the fields around. And as things stabilize, they'll be able to pull some of that back in and salvage it. Most of this is covered by insurance for Teal Jones. The building itself is property of the port and the ground underneath it. There may be some drywall issues we need to work on with them, and we're in discussions now as they figure out how to move forward. The property immediately next to that is Mountain View Reload. They did a little bit better as their offices were elevated a little bit more, but they also have had some of their lumber go walkabout, and they need to pull it back in, clean it up. They also lost forklifts, but those were leased material, and for the most part, the lumber for these businesses and the lifting equipment is covered by insurance. So they're doing okay, but have lost a lot of fencing, and it's quite a big mess. Here in Bellingham, Mount Baker Plywood had some quite serious flooding, affecting almost all the product they had on their floor up to a certain height. Their rail spur took an awful lot of water and damage over it. It was out of commission for some time. BN has since repaired that rail spur. We think they're almost done putting that fully back into service. And it may be done as we speak now.
Can I ask a quick favor?
Yeah, sure.
Can we go to the speaker view? Not that I don't like seeing Dave on the screen. It's just that he's not doing anything, and you are doing the speaking. So if we could just move to that speaker view. Love you, Dave. Just.
Where is the speaker view here?
You can't do that. It doesn't work that way here because of the cameras.
Oh, so never mind then.
Okay, but I clicked Dave off anyway. Dave, I'll put you back on in just a second. Gaston Bay also had some flooding. Tri-County Diesel, we managed to help them out with some sandbags that prevented them from having serious damage, and a few other sites outside of buildings were also flooded. Woodstone had a little bit of damage, and our guests of Northwest Labs had some parking lot damage that we're mitigating at this moment. So I think I should now turn over to Dave, because he has some other items as well. And Dave, you've come back. I didn't do anything.
My feelings are hurt, by the way. Actually, I'm gonna punt to Andy so he can hit on the more major topics up in Blaine, and then I'll back clean up, so to speak.
All right, Andy Peterson, Blaine Harbor Master. Good evening, commissioners. So during the first of our storm events in November, we had some fairly serious flooding in some of our buildings here, with the sewer systems just experiencing a capacity issue, which caused a lot of that extra rainwater and sewage to come back up through our toilets, showers, floor drains, And I don't think I found a manhole cover in the harbor anywhere that didn't have something coming out of it that evening. However, we do have a very good partnership with the city of Blaine, and they had given us a few hour advance warning that they were expecting some overflow conditions. And we were able to close some valves, isolating all of our property from the sewer system, which we feel prevented some pretty expensive damage at the time. So this isn't something that's new. The first, Blaine's had some issues with this in the past, which is why we had these valves put in to help us isolate the sanitary sewer from our facilities here at Blaine. And I just want to, again, just give the city a thanks that they're working with us to give us those advance notices that helps us reduce the damage when that does occur. I'll send it back over to Dave unless anybody had any questions.
How is it light in Blaine right now?
Yeah, I'm wondering why the
It's
sun
magic.
is.
I'm actually somewhere in the Caribbean. You don't know that.
Thank you, Andy. For the meeting, Dave Warder, Marine Terminals and Emergency Services Manager for the Port of Bellingham. I wanted to lead off with Elliot and Andy, just because I think the majority of the hits we took were in those areas. Otherwise, we actually did fare pretty well, as Elliot touched on, considering what took place. In my 30 years here, I've watched Spalkin Creek overflow, I don't know how many times, but never have I seen it back all the way up to where Tri-County Diesel, where we had to actually put sandbags in front of the doors to keep the water out. So our maintenance staff was quick to react and respond to not only that location, to Blaine, and I'm sure other areas I'm unaware of. So kudos to them. Otherwise, we just saw really kind of minor flooding in parking lots that really didn't slow down our businesses and our tenants very much. We had parking flooding on the north end of the Silfab building in the gravel lot, but it didn't stop operations at all. FMIP had some flooding in and around Building 8. When the real estate staff checked in, we didn't have any report of any serious water intrusion in that building. And then Elliot touched on the Woodstone parking lots as well. So outside of that, there was wind also related with this event because it was a pretty good storm. There was some lighting issues out at the airport, but that was also quickly mitigated as well. So overall, operationally, obviously the real estate impacts are huge out in Sumas and to Mount Baker Plywood and up in Blaine. But I think we should count ourselves pretty lucky that the rest of the areas fared pretty well. And open it up for any other questions.
Mr. Briscoe?
How did our storm water system do at the terminal, Dave? Do we have any troubles there? Or?
For the stormwater aspect, no, not at all, none.
Does any of that stormwater drain off of Cornwall come into our shipping terminal? That's all city.
I am not the environmental expert, but I am going to tell you, as far as I'm concerned, no. Everything is on the shipping terminal flows into the shipping terminal, and that's what we manage through our industrial stormwater permit.
Okay.
That's correct. And the shipping terminal has its own specific permit, so we wouldn't ever mix that with anyone else's stormwater.
That's why I was wondering if there was an extra
Correct.
pipe that came to us or not. Thank you, Dave.
You bet.
Okay, thank you for the update. Appreciate it.
I've got a couple of questions. I was out there earlier today. Andy, it looked great. You weren't there, but I did stop by the office to say hi. And as I was walking down that pier, the sinkhole has given me some concern. Can you give us some assurances that that area is stable, especially when you look at the erosion that's going underneath, and the sinkhole itself seemed to be covered with metal plates. So it seems to me like we might have some liability there, and I want to make sure we mitigate that if we can. And maybe it is just a matter of denying access over that if we do. But what is the stability of that area, and how are we looking? And I did see the damage to the piers and the underlying structures. It's significant. That's not going to be cheap.
Commissioners, we've been talking about this one for a while with the city of Blaine. We're going to be looking for some of the federal money that's coming down the pipe to try and fix this. Our engineers have been out there. The plates have been around for a while. That's not a new thing. The plates have been out there for probably the last 5+ years, I believe. They seem to work pretty well. Everything that moves out there moves pretty slowly. Unless you have a big storm like that, then all of a sudden you got a big change. But we're pretty aware of the condition of it. The engineers, like I said, are aware of it. The city of Blaine is aware of it, and we're keeping a pretty close eye on it.
Yeah, like I said, it's just more of it just looks more ominous maybe than it is.
The key is going to be getting it fixed, and I think us and Blaine together hopefully can get some federal monies to get that done and get the road fixed.
So, and the last one is the contamination, the sewage obviously went into Drayton Harbor. Is there any time frame for when we might expect that to be cleaned?
We're not going to have an answer for that one. Yeah, that they're still going to have to do a lot of testing to figure out just how bad it is. Andy's maybe got a comment on that.
Well, I was going to say, that's something that we'll be discussing with the city of Blaine. When we meet with them, we'll have a better idea of what the extent of that pollution was during the incident and what the timeline will be for that to mitigate itself.
And the impact of the businesses that are there, it's got to be tremendous.
Did we lose any live product, Andy?
No, not that I'm aware of. When the event started, North Sound Pacific Seafood immediately isolated their tanks. So I don't know of anybody else that lost any product.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all I've got. Thank you for the update. We'll go on to other business, but I want to make sure that I don't have to be reminded by my fellow commissioners that we do have advisory committee meetings, and I'd like to make sure that we have those announced before. Yeah, I'm going to do this first. I'm running this meeting. So our advisory committee meeting schedule is the Bellingham International Airport Advisory Committee is January 13th at 4 p.m. That's the BIAC committee, January 13th at 4 p.m. The Marine Advisory Committee is December 14th at 6 p.m. So I want to make sure I got that in. Those are our advisory committee meetings, and we will also have a second comment period, which we normally do at the end of our meeting. Anyone wishing to speak to the commission, now is your opportunity.
Commissioner, I have one other item.
Elliot Smith.
This is public comment.
No. Public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to speak? Hearing none. Any staff members wish to address the commission at this time?
Yes, I have a item on my plate. That will be someone else's job in a moment. This is a brief moment of thanks and gratitude and congratulations. Is Brady Scott on the line there somewhere? Hi, Brady. I see you. I'm gonna try to tap on your picture. We'll see how that goes. June 2nd, 2014, Brady Scott started working for the real estate department here at the Port of Bellingham. Congratulations are in order because Brady has accepted a new role after 7 years and 6 months of quite hard work, I believe. He will be working for the Department of Natural Resources Aquatic Resources Division as the Assistant Division Manager. He'll be responsible for Northwest Washington State, so we will see Brady again. I hope you were all nice to him. But I really want to commend Brady for a very professional handover of his responsibilities, his files to his colleagues, for a lot of years of hard work, and for teaching me quite a lot over the past 6 months about real estate and the marine environment, and wish Brady well going forward. He's with us till the 17th of December, but as this is the last commission meeting for him, I wanted to give a word of thanks. Brady, thank you, and good luck.
Yeah, thanks, Elliot. It's certainly been a pleasure working at the port for the last 7 years. Excited about my future, but I will certainly miss working here with all you, with the leadership of the commission and Rob. It's been a real pleasure. So I'm going to still be living in Bellingham, and we'll have opportunity to see you around and also work with the port in my new role. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Best of luck, Brady. Thank you.
Good luck in the future, Brady. Thanks for working at the port here.
Yeah, and thanks for putting us up with this as long as you did. Thank you, Brady.
Thank you, Brady. Appreciate everything you did.
Okay, with that, let's move to other business. Commissioner Shepard.
Okay, just one item that I've discussed with Executive Director Fix is now that we're moving into a new phase of the waterfront, we've got a lot of exciting options coming up. It's just been bringing to the forefront for me the need for us to take on some more of the master planning process. And if this involves some outside help to help get us there, I think that would be a effective use of funds. And it's just something that we've relied on others to do for us in the past. And because of the change of circumstances, we're in a role to do more of this work on our own. And I think there's a number of great, exciting, some complicated questions to answer about the future, what's going to be developed next, and how that development pathway is going to move forward. So I just want us to take a more upfront role in there and do a little bit more of the steering.
Thanks, Commissioner. Yeah, we have a meeting, I think it's on Friday this week, internal staff meeting to discuss exactly this and a proposal from a local architect that we're reviewing to help us with phase 2 of the container village and also to do some of this other preliminary master planning that you're speaking of. So I think there's a lot more to come to that and appreciate your comments.
Okay, thank
Do
you.
keep us involved in that because I'd like to know what that looks like going forward too. Yeah, thank you. Is that it? Commissioner Briscoe?
Have done.
This is just way too easy. So I have,
Come up with something though, but I want you to go first.
well, this has kind of been on my plate for a little bit, and for those of you that have known me know that I'm consistent in this. When I was with the Charter Review Commission, I asked that the Charter Review Commission take a look at term limits for county offices. And at that time, I got into many debates with many county officials, including Red Brown, who moderated my view on it somewhat. But I am still a fan of making public service just that, a public service, and limiting the number of terms that people serve is, I think, a part of that, because then it becomes something, once you get beyond a certain number of terms, it becomes more than that. So I would love to see us take up for the Port of Bellingham the idea of putting limits on the number of terms that commissioners seek. And I'll just give you some background on this. When we went through this with the Charter Review Commission, we can't impose that on ourselves. It would be for future elections is what we'd be looking at. But I do believe a turnover in ideas and a turnover in personnel is a healthy commission. I'm not married to any number of terms, but I do think that having lifetime memberships or having too long a terms or people serving in one place for too long is not advantageous to any public service. So I'm not actually asking for us to vote on discussion. Yeah, I'm asking for discussion on that, and I would like to bring it forward at a later date for possible inclusion on an agenda. But I do believe that that is something that it's been a consistent thing for me, is to see what I call the political class keep getting elected time after time after time. Yeah, and I just don't, I think it's just a healthier system if we have good, solid turnover. And I don't have a definite number of terms. I prefer 2 for Ken. When we did it through the county, we settled in on 3. And how that looked was up to that commission to decide, but I'd like to introduce that and at least have that on the agenda for some future meeting and have you guys give it some thought and some discussion.
So did you say the county the county has a term limit?
Correct, three consecutive terms
For all positions?
for all positions.
I didn't know that.
Yep, and that happened and it wasn't subject to, past, members. Otherwise, we would have lost the entire council. Right? So it only impacted future, but there are gonna be some that are term limited out, after this term. I think this is the first county council that will actually have term limit, impositions on it.
Interesting.
But it doesn't come into play that often when you take a look at the history of, say, the port or of the council, but it does come into play more than you'd think.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say about the port commissions around the state is that it's not a very high-paying job. So most people don't, a lot of people jump into these positions for two things, the money and the power. I have reservations about a term limit for commissioners, not necessarily for myself, but just if you get someone that's very good in there and the people are very happy with him and the economic development is there and everything's working well, it's hard to find people to do these jobs that can be good at it and take the abuse you take and still look forward and try and create a future an economic future for the county. So it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because you can put term limits in to stop something wrong from happening, but you can also do that to stop something good from happening. Generally, if it's bad enough, the people speak their mind and they go away. Really, from what I've seen about term limits, is the people that really yell about it are unhappy because they couldn't get in there. But maybe they couldn't get in there for a reason, I don't know. So, enjoyed having the talk about it, but off the cuff, that's kind of where I'm at, is if, a lot of these positions are pretty highly paid, and that's why they'd like to stay there as long as they do. I don't consider this position a highly paid position. This is more of a public service by us. We do get insurance and we get a few bucks, but a lot of people think we get 10 times what we get, and we don't. So this is more of a volunteer position than a wanted position. I mean, really, that's kind of the way I feel about it. I got many other things I could be doing, but I think this is important to try and help the people of Whatcom County. So I'm on the fence on that one. I really,
I'll respond directly to what you said. There are a number of people who would have stepped up to run for my position had I not. Right, so I don't see necessarily the lack of people wanting to do the job. It's just that we haven't created the opening for that. So it's very hard to beat an incumbent. I mean, I think we saw that in this last election. Incumbency does have a certain number of advantages. And I can list at least 3 people that would have filled my seat if I had not run. And again, they look at you and they say, "Are you going to run?" And I say, "I don't know yet." "Well, make up your mind, because if you're not, I will." So I see a number of qualified people that would fill the void, but it's more of a let's get some different ideas in and let's mix it up a little bit. And I think part of the 5 commissioner debate is just that too. It is there are more people out there that want to do it. They want more ideas, and I just think this is a way just to mix it up. None of us would be impacted by it.
Oh, no.
So it's not even that. Well, actually, I'm doing this just to get rid of you, so, no. It's clearly.
Don't push real hard.
It's clearly, it's something that would impact 3 terms or 2 terms down the road for whoever would come in. So it's not that at all. It's just, I like the idea of fresh ideas, and quite frankly, I like the idea of setting an example, because I see it throughout government where people get entrenched into positions and they just never leave. And we just see it throughout government, and I don't think it's a healthy way to do government, so we could lead by example. This is Ken Bell's take.
Well, I've never seen an immediate need. It's never something that's come along and said, oh my gosh, this is what was wrong with the port or our local government that we needed this, but I'm willing to entertain it. I think it would be useful to understand if other ports around the state have this. It was certainly, I didn't even know the county council had this, so it's kind of news to me. And is it within our authority to do this, or, is it something that the legislature has to weigh in on? Because I know they set a lot of the parameters that we work under. It was just another unknown that I don't know.
Commissioner Briscoe.
So question, are you sure the county council has term limits? Because Barbara Brenner was there for like 141 years.
So Barbara accused me when I brought this up at the Charter Review Commission of this being the Brenner amendment to the, because she was there for a lifetime, actually two, if truth be known. But it would not have.
It's all in fun, Barbara.
It would not have impacted Barbara's position because she was in office at the time the vote was taken from the commission. And so she resigned, or she didn't run long before.
So this was recently.
Yeah, this was 10 years ago. And she had 2 more terms, I think, after.
So her term numbers actually started while she was in office, so she continued out that okay.
She could have kept running.
Yeah.
And 2 more times.
Commissioners, if I can suggest we do a little staff work on this one and come back to you with what your authority is here. I'm not sure you have the authority to implement this. I mean, it might have to go to the voters, it might have to go to the legislature, I don't know. But why don't we do some homework for you on this and get back to you? We can also tell you if there's any other ports in the state do have term limits.
Well, I'm pretty sure we can't do it, but we can ask somebody else to have it done. I mean, I think that's where it's got.
I'm just not sure if it's a vote of the people or if it's a legislative action or how you go about that.
It's just a personal pet peeve, so you're indulging Ken on this one entirely.
Okay.
Incumbents can be because his predecessor was, so the people spoke. So I'm not real nervous about it.
It's not a matter of nerves.
Can we get this done? Can we get this done before I gotta run again?
Anyway, that's the only thing I will, let's, thank you for indulging me, and I apologize for the staff time. And then my other last little bit of it, of other business is, I really just once again want to say thank you to the staff for taking all of the heat, not only that we had during the election, but also what we had during the pandemic and also throughout this last year. This was not an easy year to either be a commissioner or to be on the staff of the port, or to be in any public agency. You have no idea how much we appreciate you. I clearly would not be in this position again if you hadn't paved the path for me. I was able to walk over the streets of gold paved by your carcasses. Gotta be a better way to say that. You guys paid the price so that we are back in office, but it's not from our doing, and it certainly isn't to our credit that we are still here in this office. I just want to say thank you to you, all the staff, for getting us to this point. You can't imagine how much I appreciate it. Not as eloquently said as I have said other things in my past, but
It's the thought that counts.
you get the idea.
I'll speak for all the carcasses. You're welcome.
And with that, I have no other business.
I have one thing.
It's a love-hate relationship I have with you.
As Commissioner Bell said, thank you to the staff for a tough year and work well done by everyone with good outcomes in times when there was a lot of bad things going on. And other than that, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and we'll see you next year.
Meeting adjourned.
2022 is a wrap.